In this video, we're going to jump into the vitamins section of all of this. This is going to be quite a bit of information, so it's going to probably be broken up into a couple videos, but we will get through all of it. So when we talk about vitamins specifically, we want to remember that there are some other names that we can use. As with all of science, a lot of the AKAs are typically where people get tripped up. So when we talk about vitamins and minerals, the vitamins, when they are activated, they are used as what are called coenzymes, meaning that they are used along with the enzymes in order for reactions to occur. So vitamins are coenzymes, minerals are what are called cofactors. They do similar jobs, however, they have different names because they're different compounds and slightly different functions. So, starting with the B vitamins, this whole chart has a bunch of really good information in it that we really need to make sure that we focus in on, because you're gonna get questions from all of this that pop up again in questions from physiology, in questions from pathology. So we want to make sure that we really understand these. These third and fourth rows, the active form and the reaction type, those tend to be the main focus for our biochemistry questions. The disease and deficiency type notes, these last two columns, this is what tends to be the more pathology, physiology type questions, okay? So we start off with our B vitamins. We have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 12. Our mnemonic for remembering the B vitamins is tall, rich, nudists, played pickleball for centuries. Again, that's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, and 12. B1, this is probably the most tested B vitamin of all of them. It is our thiamine. Thiamine is converted into its active form, known as thiamine pyrophosphate, or TPP. The reaction type for this is decarboxylation, so removing of CO2 from molecules. And with deficiency of our thiamine, we can have a couple different conditions. The first one being beriberi. This is a condition where you start to get some you can have some neurological type symptoms, and you have a lot of issues because you don't have the thiamine. So you can have two types. You can have wet beriberi, which means that you don't have enough thiamine within the portions of the cardiovascular system, or you can have dry beriberi, which is more peripheral nervous system related, specifically peripheral neuropathy. So this is going to be any kind of person, like if they're having some type of peripheral neuropathy, they're having lung type issues, specifically numbness, especially within the legs, and you can rule out other conditions like diabetes or a musculoskeletal disorder, then we come back to beriberi. And most of the time, these types of questions are going to involve some kind of implication that the diet is responsible. Either, they're not eating enough food, or maybe they only eat rinsed rice as one of their primary food sources. That's kind of one of those things where thiamine is added into rice, and that's one of the reasons why completely rinsing and washing the rice, if that is a staple of your diet, is not always the best idea. Additionally, another disease that we see is Wernicke-Korsakoff's syndrome. This is a thiamine deficiency due to alcohol. So because they're drinking so much alcohol, they don't have a proper diet, they don't get enough thiamine, and as a result, they can have a lot of potential issues with that. The biggest thing you're going to look for is the alcohol portion of things, and you're going to look at psychosis with some type of dementia. So you're going to have kind of not knowing where you are, something else is going on within the brain kind of realm of things, as well as not being able to remember stuff, having that dementia, that short-term memory loss, that kind of stuff. Our next one is B2, which is known as riboflavin. Riboflavin is our base component for all of these. For FAD, FADH, are flavin adenine dinucleotide. We want to know all of the different potential names for this. Specifically, this has two reactions that it takes part in: oxidation reduction reactions, and then dehydrogenase enzyme reactions. Deficiency or disease, you will see something called chelosis. This is cracking in the corners of the mouth, or it's also called angular stomatitis. So chelosis, angular stomatitis, those are the same thing. You can also have what's called a magenta tongue. So you can see chelosis with some other conditions. So there are some sexually transmitted diseases where you can get chelosis, but we will talk about those more in the pathology type portion. So we're looking, if they mention, again, diet, something wrong with the diet, they mention chelosis and a magenta tongue, immediately we will go to riboflavin deficiency. Niacin. Yeah, niacin is very similar to riboflavin. It's our NAD, our nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. The base form being niacin, NAD+, NADH, NADPH, NADP+. All of those guys, again, these are, again, our oxidation reduction reactions called our dehydrogenase enzyme. I should kind of more organize it like this, where our dehydrogenase enzyme, dehydrogenase, it's taking off hydrogens. That is part of our oxidation reduction reaction. Because remember, oxidation is loss of electrons or hydrogens. Reduction is gain of electrons or hydrogens. Now, the big thing with niacin, if we have a deficiency, we get a condition called pellagra. Pellagra, these have the 4 Ds. This is almost always tested on. You get dementia, diarrhea, dermatitis, which is some type of skin rash, and then eventually death. So this is a very, very serious deficiency because we use niacin, we use this coenzyme for so many things. Additionally, tryptophan can be used to produce niacin. So if we don't have enough B3 from our food, if we're getting enough tryptophan, we can actually produce our own niacin. B5 is our pantothenic acid, the active form being pantothenate. Not asked super often, except for this specific point, that it is the structural component of coenzyme A. So coenzyme A, if we recall, is responsible for producing our fatty acids. We actually link a bunch of coenzyme A's together in order to produce fatty acids, as well as coenzyme A is the substance that goes into the Krebs cycle. So it is very, very important, but again, B5 not asked a ton. If it does have a condition, there's something called burning foot syndrome, where literally you have burning pain specifically on the feet. Not very commonly asked though. B6, known as pyridoxine, its active form is pyridoxal 5-phosphate. It does transamination, converting something in order to help cross a membrane, as well as amino acid metabolism. Not a lot more to be said about B6. Not asked super commonly either. B7, biotin, also known as biocytin or carboxybiotin. It does carboxylation, so adding on a CO2. This one is it's most commonly asked in this specific context, that there is another protein that is found in egg whites that actually breaks down biotin. So biotin is found commonly in the yolks of eggs, and the egg white has a component that breaks it down. So this is actually specifically why when they say when you cook an egg, the best type of egg is like an egg over easy or cooked with the yolk still slightly runny, because heat also can destroy a lot of our vitamins. But yeah, that's the most common context that this is asked in, that avidin is in egg whites and depletes biotin. Besides thiamine, or thiamine, however you want to pronounce it, B9 and B12 are the most commonly asked. So B9 is our folic acid or a folate. Active form is tetrahydrofolate, or it is M, which is methylated tetrahydrofolate reductase. Very commonly mutated gene in many people. It's responsible for 1 carbon transfers, or a methyl transfer. Responsible helps with DNA and RNA synthesis. We have methyl transfer and methyl attachment within our DNA and RNA to help code and key a lot of different things. The big things that we're going to ask about with this: megaloblastic anemia, also known as macrocytic anemia. We'll get into that a lot more again in the pathology section, but it gets asked very, very commonly on most board exams. You can get glossitis, so inflammation of, I believe it's the esophagus is glossitis. No, the mouth. Glossitis is inflammation of, specifically of the tongue. It's inflammation of the tongue because swollen, red, and sore. Finally, neural tube defects or spina bifida. You're going to see these things. Specifically, pregnant female has issues with B9 because we require a lot of B9 for a newborn baby. So if we don't get enough B9, enough folic acid, then we can have neural tube defects, which we call that spina bifida. Spina bifida, you can get like the spina bifida occulta, or you have a couple different levels, which again we'll see in the pathology portion. So most commonly look for pregnant female, newborn baby with a hairy patch on the spine is the most common way that we'll talk about spina bifida. B12 is our cobalamin. Methylcobalamin or deoxyadenosylcobalamin are the active forms, and it does homocysteine remethylation, which we'll talk about in the next chunk of material. If we do not have enough B12, we can get a condition called pernicious anemia. This is from a lack of intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor, we're going to talk about that a lot more in the pathology portion as well as the physiology portion. It is a chemical that is produced within the stomach that allows for the absorption of our B12 vitamin. So especially as we get older, or if we have a less acidic stomach, or we have stomach issues, we can have less intrinsic factor, and therefore it's more difficult to absorb our B12 vitamin. B12 deficiency can also result in what is called posterolateral sclerosis. So it's an issue with the posterior lateral portion of the spinal cord, also known as combined systems disease. We'll talk about that in the pathology section. So we have a B12 deficiency from any other cause is megaloblastic anemia. especially with vegetarians or vegans. Most commonly, that's what they will throw in there. They have a vegetarian or a vegan diet, and they're having some issues with movements. They'll throw in the PLS type symptoms, and that's going to be a lot of our B12 stuff. Last water soluble vitamin, and we'll end this, is our vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid. You're always going to see it written as ascorbic acid. That's the way it's going to be tested. It's almost never written as vitamin C. Most importantly is the production of collagen. Again, this will come back and we'll talk about this more in physiology and the pathology section, as well as vitamin C enhances iron absorption. So if you're having some type of iron issue, iron deficiency, anemia, something like that, you encourage them, have vitamin C along with a good source of iron. You'll have scurvy. The bleeding gums is the most common one that they will ask about with that. And that is our water-soluble vitamins. We'll continue the next one with some methylation cycle and some more of the vitamins, and then eventually minerals.